Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Today we're discussing the 2020 redesign of the Omega Constellation. And I must say that this particular rendition in ceramic and steel with luminescent dial is probably the sportiest evolution of the Connie since the early 2000s double eagles. So the Griffin Claw Constellation, or the Manhattan as it's known, originated in 1982. And while always popular, it was particularly so in the Far East. But the design, although of European origin, never really caught on in Western markets. Whereas here, the Griffin Claw, or bracketed design, is updated with a tonneau case and a ceramic bezel with a dial to match to bridge that gap between East and West and make the Griffin Claw Connie work as well in Europe and America as it's always worked in East Asia. And so it's a big watch, 41 millimeters in diameter, but a tonneau case, so a bit unconventional in how it fits. It's 13.7 millimeters thick, and then if you measure end link to end link across the nearly lugless case, it's 48.5 millimeters across the wrist. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and it wears nicely. I would say if your wrist is my size or larger, this is a great fit. And you can see from over the top that the lugs are not out over the edge of my wrist, and this over-the-top angle always exaggerates the width of the watch. Taking a look down the barrel, you can see right there that I actually have a little bit of clearance. This might wear on a 15 centimeter circumference wrist. Also, it's not super thin, but it does have a sloped case flank, so a cuff should ramp right up and over the side of this watch. Strap. Okay, now we're talking about straps. You can see that this is pretty proprietary. The way this joins together, you're going to need an Omega factory strap or a very well-made, tailored custom piece to fit this watch. But it's a combination of a very dark blue rectangular scale alligator leather with a blue rubber backing. So this is going to be very durable, as the rubber will hold everything together and also isolate the leather from moisture, heat, sweat, and grit of the wrist. Also important, you can see that there's this rubber gusset that's molded through the center so that the pin of the buckle doesn't gouge the leather. Rolling around to that buckle, this is a well-known piece. It's been on Omega watches since the early 2000s because it's a great piece. Satin and polish, you can see a little bit of contrast. Twin trigger release, you have to press both, not one, to open it up, so it's very secure. And then you can see there are these two little lobes in the pin, and what happens is you tuck the strap through, you tuck it under the lobe, and then all the extra length, once it's sized up, hides underneath the clasp and the strap, so there's no excess length visible externally, and you don't need strap minder loops. The case is definitely that of a tonneau. This is not a round case. It's a round bezel, but it's not a round case. And you can see it features faceting in satin, but also a contrast between polish and satin. The Griffin claws, or the griffes as they are known en français, they are polished, and they're also somewhat minimized. They're not as prominent as they have been on previous versions. The griffes are very controversial in the West, and they've always been the element that makes the Manhattan a harder sell. So what Omega did was mostly blended them in. They don't project beyond the case as they often do on Manhattan-style Connies. Instead, they're more of a tonal and material and color contrast at the edges, which works quite well. The crown is a pushdown. You can see it's a combination of a media blast and polish. All this is 50 meters water resistant. We have fired enamel infill for the blue ceramic bezel, and the ceramic is very scratch resistant. A little bit of a domed profile to the crystal itself. And then you can see that these links, the hinges at the end, they're polished for contrast. The watch features a ceramic dial, and you can tell because it says zirconium oxide down there. So it gives you basically all the advantages of enamel. It won't oxidize, tarnish, discolor. It's very durable against atmospheric effects, but it doesn't have the expense or the fragility of enamel, so it's really the best of both worlds. And it is a polished glossy. We have blue applique indices, Omega logo, and marquee, and then we have the vintage Constellation logo. Plus, we have that little star to remind you that the original Constellation in 1952 was an observatory chronometer. Out back, we have an 8900, which is the twin-barrel 60-hour Premier Omega automatic. They do have 55-hour single barrels, but this is the big boy. So you have a hacking seconds function. that allows you to stop everything and synchronize the watch to a reference time. You also have an independently mobile hour hand that can allow you to move from time zone to time zone as you travel, even jump the date forward or backwards depending on which way you're going across the international date line. Doesn't stop the seconds hand, doesn't move the minutes hand. Like I said, automatic winding, twin barrels, 60 hours. The twin barrels really there more to give you a nice flat torque plateau and keep the watch isochronous, rather than running really fast when fully wound and then slowing down after 24, 36, 48 hours. The twin barrels give you that consistency that you want. You can see 39 jewel movement, features arabesque Côte de Genève across the bridges and rotor, both polished and blackened screws, and neat, handsome, but machine-applied bevel. We're being honest about the price point. It's got a full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance for shock resistance. The free-sprung balance also allows for very precise adjustment. Anti-magnetic balance wheel, balance staff, silicone hairspring, and anti-magnetic escapement, making this watch effectively amagnetic. We have the tri-level coaxial, this little bridge underneath where you can sort of see part of the coax, but developed by George Daniels in the early 70s. 1974, I think, was the first. He sold it to Omega in the 90s. Omega industrialized it in 1999, created the 8500 series of purpose-built coaxial movements in 2007, and then the 8900 is the master chronometer version of the 8500. So master chronometer means this is a COSC movement, but it goes beyond that. It meets the COSC standards, but then 6-position adjustment and cased up testing, fully assembled watch in 6 positions. So it's a full watch test, but also for water resistance, winding efficiency, power reserve, anti-magnetism, obviously, chronometry, total durability. It is a full test of the assembled watch that you receive as a customer, not a 2-week bare movement 5-position test like COSC performs on bare movements. So this watch goes through the mill. This movement has proved itself above and beyond a simple COSC chronometer. And it's got a quirky beat rate of 25,200 vibrations per hour. Recently, I should have mentioned in my reviews of tri-level 8900 and 8500 based coaxial chronographs, the chrono versions of these to have more conventional 8 beat per second dial calibration. Those are 28.8, but these standard versions without the chronograph are 25,200. So lots to love about this watch. We'll do a quick loom shot because we didn't do a loom shot. You can see that the hands are luminescent, so you can approximate the time. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.